Hello everyone, me again. Our next speaker is Renate Beilharz, and she's going to be talking about making information discoverable through effective metadata is a thread and that permeated Renate's librarianship career as teacher librarian in secondary schools, as cataloguing editor in the tertiary sector, and as the current cataloguing team leader at SCIS. Renate loves cataloguing because it facilitates connections between people and relevant resources. Renate's session is Cataloguing Connections, Sources of Metadata. Thank you. Renate, you're right to go.
Okay, I am right to go. Thanks a lot. Thanks for that introduction, and thanks everyone for joining me as I present on a topic that I am absolutely passionate about, cataloguing connections. We're all connecting online to LibTech 21 from country all over Australia and overseas, I noticed. I'm presenting you from the country of the Wurundjeri peoples, and I celebrate their continuing connection to lands and waters. I acknowledge and pay my respects to elders past and present across Australia who have been responsible for maintaining and passing on culture and learning over the generations, maintaining connections to country. And I also acknowledge the two presentations we've heard so far. It's shaping up to be a great afternoon. I also want to thank the organising committee for LibTech 21 for choosing the theme of connections for this symposium, which is what cataloguing is all about, and that is my passion, as you heard. So cataloguing is about providing the means by which people can connect with resources and make connections between resources, allowing end users to navigate between resources to find the information they require. As you heard before, I'm the cataloguing team leader at SCIS. SCIS is a cataloguing collective that provides school libraries with catalogue records for print and digital content. A team of over 15 SCIS cataloguers create unique records suited to Australian and New Zealand school libraries. Resources for SCIS cataloguing are primarily received from schools and publishers. During much of 2020 and 2021, most of our cataloguers worked from home with limited access to those physical resources. Data for the new records had to be obtained from sources other than the physical item. Over the past 2 years, SCIS cataloguers have risen to the challenge of cataloguing without item in hand, sourcing and collecting metadata from a range of online sites and data repositories to create records according to SCIS Standards. SCIS cataloguers used a variety of sources of metadata: distributor and bookseller websites, publisher websites and their Onyx Files, library catalogues, ebook platforms, reader advisory and social media sites. Basically, cataloguers were looking for images of the resources, bibliographic data, summaries, blurbs, contents, and so forth, things that identify topical content. So this presentation will describe and evaluate a few of sources of data which cataloguers used to create SCIS records for print resources when they did not have the item in hand. There's a handout on the event platform to support this presentation, which is basically a summary of the sites I mentioned. If you have a role in your library as a reader in reader advisory or collection development, you'll also find that some of these sources can be used to assist you in that role. I think most cataloguers agree that cataloguing with item in hand is the most effective way to do it, and that we can create the best quality records if we can view the resource itself. Without item in hand, cataloguers need information and/or images to accurately identify all the descriptive data elements that, especially those that are transcribed, in other words, copied directly from the resource, such as title, statement of responsibility, publisher, series statement. Bibliographic data presented on websites may not always be as accurate as if we took the information from the preferred source of information, which is the item itself. Quick aside for those of you who recognise some of the images on the slide, the ones on the left-hand side are from the original RDA toolkit. The one on the right is the equivalent data from the current or new RDA toolkit. So back to cataloguing. So a view of the title pages, the front and back cover, is desirable when cataloguing. These sources will also help with the allocation of access points, name headings, other title headings, series headings. Ascertaining the topical contents requires access to contents pages, summaries, introductions, and so forth. Some of this information can be obtained from an ebook version of a title or from publishers' websites. But nevertheless, for best accuracy, a digital image of the print version is preferred. So as a first step, cataloguers, when cataloguing without item in hand, will look for online previews and look inside options for titles. So let's have a look at some of those sources. Google Books, very useful starting point when hunting for an online preview of the resource. And you'll see that it is a case of hunting until you find what you need as a cataloguer. A simple Isbn search in the main Google search will often provide information about the title in the knowledge panel on the right-hand side of the screen. And if you're lucky, there'll be a link to a preview. You can also search the ISBN directly in Google Books, that is books.google.com, for a page of data about the resource. Along with full text out of copyright titles, the Google Books platform has preview of titles that are still in copyright. The Google Partner Program allows publishers and authors to provide Google Books with permission to provide a certain percentage of the title as a preview. And it's up to each copyright owner to ascertain what percentage of the resource is shown in the sample page's view or the preview. Google clearly states this is something we do with the publisher's explicit permission. And it's really useful for cataloguers who don't have item in hand. But there are always drawbacks to relying on Google Books. Firstly, it doesn't have data for all titles published, nor do they, if they do have the data, they may not have the preview. And even when a title does have a preview, it's only limited. And it's the luck of the draw, whether you get the title page, the contents page, the back cover, and so forth. The verso of the title page, the one with the publisher details in tiny writing, which is sometimes right at the end of the preview, not at the start where it usually would be in a print book. So it's worth scrolling to the end of a Google Books preview. The other curious thing about Google Preview is that it changes. Sometimes I can access some pages on one day, and for the same title on another day, these pages are no longer available in the preview. And also, with these online previews, cataloguers need to confirm the format of the preview used. Is it for the print version, the ebook, the trade paperback? The data required for a specific ISBN may be a little bit different for each format, so we do need to keep that in mind. Google previews are often embedded into publisher websites and distributor websites, such as Hachette. Their look inside is actually a Google preview, and Daintree Books, where it has a clear link to Google preview. The other good source for previews of print titles is the Amazon platform. which may provide a look inside option for titles in their list. Like Google Books, publishers and creators give Amazon permission to provide look inside options for their titles, and the publishers dictate the level of access. Like Google Books, you only have a limited sample of the content of a title in a look inside option. So for this title, we have the cover, the title page recto, the front of the title page, and the contents page, foreword and introduction. But we don't have the verso, the back of the title page, where we source the publication details. Also, like Google Books, you may not be viewing the actual edition you are cataloguing. Though the note that comes with the preview is really useful, as it refers to the publication date as well as publication format. Some publishers provide their own look inside options, such as Nosy Crow or Pembroke Publishers, and their look inside is most useful with exact facsimile of the title pages. Book distributor Wheelers provide another look inside option, though once again, not for all titles. I suspect that they actually use Google Books preview because the publication details are presented on the last page of the preview, not near the front as normally expected. So as you can see, even looking for exact online images of the pages required to create an accurate bibliographic description of a not-in-hand item is quite a hunt. So moving on to considering printed metadata found on the publisher and distributor websites, or even bookseller websites. Firstly, if we talk cataloguing standards, according to the original RDA, the data found on these websites are not the preferred source of information, and it doesn't help with ascertaining data for catalogue instructions such as transcribe the place of publication or the name of publisher as on the preferred source of information. These 4 screenshots contain data for the same title from 4 different websites. And this is just a very small sample of websites with data about resources. Now, most of this data that's presented on publisher, distributor and bookseller websites comes from the Onyx Files that publishers create about their resources. And these files are designed to assist with books, with selling, with distribution and promotion of the product. Onyx is a metadata standard used by the book trade to facilitate sharing of data about the resources. Onyx Files created by publishers includes data required by the booksellers, including the ISBN, the title, the contributor, a description, the price, on sale dates, and so forth. It also includes data about the extent of the resource, the language it's in, the various contributor roles, the format, topical terms and themes, summaries, links to cover images and contents. So really great information for cataloguers. As expected, there are problems with relying on this Onyx data for creating catalogue records. Firstly, Onyx data is usually created pre-publication when not all the details about the resource have necessarily been finalised. And if there's an error in the Onyx data created, then that error is perpetuated in the bookseller and distributor websites. SCIS is actually on some publisher email lists, and we receive notifications when corrections are required in the original Onyx data. So occasionally, when a catalogue or end user finds an error in a SCIS record that was created item not in hand, we can actually trace the error back to incorrect Onyx data. So Onyx data, even though, hey, this looks great, it needs to be used with care, as with all information sourced online. So SCIS cataloguers are asked to find a second source to verify data for the final catalogue record. A website that actually presents all that detailed Onyx data is metadata, is the subscription-based website Books in Print. The record for the title incorporates summaries and reviews, and the look inside is a bit different. It's not a digital version of the page, it's rather a text excerpt of the content. But Books in Print provides all of the Onyx data that the publisher creates in the first instance. It may interest you to know that the most challenging piece of information to find and verify online without having the item in hand is the extent, that is, the pagination. Online metadata usually has pages in the volume, but it's not clear whether the item is numbered or unnumbered, or whether it has a number of numbering sequences, or if, and in most cases, publishers don't follow the original RDA instructions of recording the last numbered page. And to make things even more challenging, if we look closer at the metadata examples here for the same title, the pagination differs depending on the website. And this is definitely not a unique occurrence. So, once again, this is a challenge when cataloguers face when cataloguing item without item in hand, relying on data on the websites, whether it be publisher, distributor, or bookseller websites. I've talked a lot about the bibliographic description of resources and the challenges. Subject cataloguing without item in hand requires access to contents pages, summaries, forewords, or introduction to be able to make the most accurate assessment of the subject headings, genre, or Dewey number to be allocated. Then, of course, there's the publisher blurbs, summaries, and review statements. And these have to be critically reviewed and read with a view to identifying the publisher hyperbole and marketing language and just putting in a summary of what the item is really about. Most publishers will provide in their Onyx files keywords for themes, genre, audience types, and so forth. Many publishers allocate keywords using the BISAC subject heading list of subject descriptors. It's an industry-approved list that may be used by bookshops to arrange their collections, resources into collections. And you'll find these terms displayed in Google Books in Print about this work, or on other websites under the headings such as product details or product category. These headings can assist with topical analysis, though they're not quite as granular as subject cataloguing usually is. Books in Print provide the BISAC headings, as well as words or terms from other vocabularies, including SCIS subject headings and big headings. Library of Congress and Dewey classifications are also provided. Now, the fact that this information is there is always dependent on the data being available from the publishers in the first place. The Wheelers website provides Library of Congress subject headings for their resources, a useful guide for cataloguers without item in hand, and they also provide a DDC number that can be used as a guide. A different source is Fantastic Fiction, and this is a very useful source for cataloguers working out the genre of a fiction title and series titles and order of reading in a series. It is, again, not a preferred source of information for transcription of the series statement, but it certainly helps with creating a consistent series access point along with consistent numbering. Now, we wonder, why don't we just use existing catalogue records at SCIS? We do use existing catalogue records, but we need it as a first or second source of information. So SCIS cataloguers do use Libraries Australia, do use OCLC's WorldCat as a primary source of information, but they are required to verify the data in those records from a secondary source, such as those discussed above. Now, records from these sources are generally of a very high quality, but there are others that are less accurate and others that are really poor. And I can't help but give you this example, found by a cataloguer recently in WorldCat. It is just so obviously wrong or incorrect. But even records that look okay need to be double checked using a second source. The goal at SCIS is to provide the best possible records for our end users. And even if we don't have the item in hand, we still have that goal. Existing catalogue records are a key source of data, but as I said before, we ask our cataloguers to verify the data from other sources, such as the ones we saw today. A SCIS cataloguer attempts to create quality records for end users, whether they have the item in hand or not. And even though it takes time, it's important to hunt through the various sources available online to verify data as much as possible. I hope you found this quick stroll through strategies that we use to catalogue without items in hand during lockdown useful. A handout, as I said before, should be available on the symposium website, highlighting some of the benefits of the websites that I mentioned. So thank you very much for listening, and I'm looking forward to a great afternoon at LibTech 21. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Renate. If you have any questions for Renate, by all means, send them through. And probably as what happened in the previous, when I asked the previous question, is that we'll probably have to ask the question at the end of the next session, because I've got two questions here for. Hang on. Yeah, I've got two questions here for Renate. One is, are school libraries still buying mainly print books, or are they moving to ebooks? If you're able to,
Sure.
Come back on.
Sure, I can respond to that. School libraries are still buying print resources, but what they're doing is they're supplementing, they're having both. And I commented on this to someone else recently, that I think what libraries do is they're always building on their resources. They very rarely chuck things out. Yes, the old cassettes have probably gone and the VHS, but you'll find even in public libraries, school libraries, the DVDs and the audio CDs are still on the shelves along with the digital resources. So most school libraries are still doing print and digital. Admittedly, non-fiction items are probably less purchased by school libraries. Fiction is definitely still purchased, picture books as well, in the physical sense. So probably our cataloguing is still based on the cataloguing requests we get from schools is 75% print and 25% digital, and that includes websites and ebooks and so forth. I hope that answers your question.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Renate. Also, we have one here for Michaela. Are there any social library virtual events to help with promotion of libraries?
Oh, gosh. As I said, we did try the book club. Uptake was very slow. I did try a letter writing program, and that was quite successful with the younger kids in like the years 5 and 6, especially the girls. They loved writing letters to their little colleagues and they posted them off. Online didn't really work for us with the younger kids. I think they were just screened out. And I think we kind of just decided that let's not force them to do any more screen time in the end. Is that the answer to the question?
I'm not really sure. So if the person who posted the question could, if they require some information, they can just
of course.
post another one.
I'll be on the chat.
Yeah, okay, thanks. We'll now have a break for a couple of minutes, and then we'll be back with another speaker. Thanks.